Hey, we are live on the Innergame. I'm Jill Weberding, CEO and founder of Nurse Assure, and I'm with Catie Harris, who is doing a glam day down in Mexico.
I'm getting ready for a photo shoot for tomorrow, so I'm excited about it. But my hair is very long and takes much longer than I was anticipating. But I'm happy to be here with you.
We're happy to have you. So today, Catie, we wanted to talk about, we've talked this week a little bit about shiny object syndrome. So tell me what you think. Have you had a lot of emails about this, or nurses that you've been working with? Tell us what your version of what is shiny object syndrome exactly.
Oh my gosh. So I'm like the poster child for shiny object syndrome because it's one of those things where you just, I'm going to say, like, I'll give you an example. So when I first started my business, I wanted to have so much knowledge and I wanted to be so much further ahead there than I was. And everybody's message resonated with me. It was like, start a funnel, make $1 million, make $1 million, start an email campaign, make $1 million. And after a while, that message starts to wane on. You see people going out the door and you keep buying these things and that promise doesn't come through. And it's not that what they're saying is false. Like, sure, you could put together $1 million funnel, but the thing is, you have to have all the other pieces in place. And I didn't have all the pieces in place. And, it was like, I wanted to be so much further ahead than where I was that, I kind of bought into that myth that if I just did that one thing, everything in my life would change. And I think that's kind of the essence of shiny object syndrome. Because, we all have that kind of like desire to have it's not like I wanted the easy road, but it was just like, I did, I wanted the shortcut to know what the right way was.
How to do it. Yeah. I think you kind of froze up a little bit.
Yeah. I just wanted the fast and easy route.
Yes. And like we've talked about this before, there is no overnight success in business and entrepreneurship. And so we can see this, like we certainly recommend that you follow mentors and, partner up with some mentors that you admire and that inspire you and who've done what you're trying to do to get some tips and glean some wisdom. But, the trick is, again, not to compare, is recognizing where you are in your business compared to where they are. And so it's usually a very different place. And that you don't necessarily, my guess is that they didn't have all the things, all the software and the systems and the things in place that they have now at the same step, at the phase one where you are. So it's a little tricky because I felt that myself where, the message resonated. I'm like, oh yes, this is what I need. I need to work on messaging, or I need to work on this. And so it's easy to kind of buy into that. But again, we've talked about this before, and this was what was so critical with your 10 steps. If you if you can't really leapfrog and skip a bunch of steps in the beginning, you need to, there is a formula of what you have to have set up first before you can get, down the road to some of that bigger successes.
Right. And I think Facebook ads is like the perfect example there because, I did that, I started buying Facebook ads and how to do Facebook ads. And I did that very early on before I had a real message or even an audience. And I was just like, all right, I'll just skip everything everybody else did and just jump to Facebook ads. And, you put $1 in and you get $2 out. And, who wouldn't do that? I mean, that's like the obvious thing to do, right? Except that because my message and audience wasn't in place, the Facebook ads ended up being, let me spend $1 and make, negative 10 cents.
Right.
And it just doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. And somebody just commented, Pam commented that she's like, she can totally relate. She said, I've got more apps than the Amazon HR department right now. So I think we've all, and that's the thing. The struggle is real. And it's not just for nurses who are, starting a business. It's across entrepreneurs. I think I've read it's like 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs have at some point fell into this shiny object syndrome where, maybe you see the big next thing or you want to do a new product launch, you have this great idea and you want to hop to that and you have all this excitement and you're running towards it, but you don't have, you kind of leave where you were unfinished, and it's just sitting there. So it won't do any good to be like, you know, spending $5,000 on a website if you don't have an offer yet.
Right. Yeah. And I, you know, it's something that I still struggle with to this day. Like, you know, I still want to purchase things that I think will change my business, but I'm still not like ready for it yet, you know, and it's hard. It's really, really hard to ignore that, that feeling like if I just shortcut this, you know, and it's again, it's not like you know, I don't want the easy road. But I feel like if you could just kind of jump, you know, a couple of hoops, maybe you could get to where you want to go a little bit faster. And it just has never worked out for me. I mean, maybe there's somebody out there that it has worked out for them, but I would say in general, for most entrepreneurs, it doesn't. It just, you have to go through the process. You have to go through the kind of that struggle of who am I? What do I want? What does my audience want? How can I help them? And it's like the unglamorous part of entrepreneurship, but
we've talked about that. Yeah.
I think it's also it's like the longest haul, and it's where you do the most transformation too. So I had to go through a lot of like personal development stuff in order to understand myself so that I could relate to my audience. And it's just like, oh, why can't I just skip over this? And you can't. Why can't I just have a funnel that fixes all of it?
Yeah, because you don't know who you're actually even targeting. So the funnel's not going to work. Like that's the trick. Is it sounds really great. And there will be a time probably in your business when you do need that piece, but you know, trying to get out of the gate and buy all these things, it's not going to help you put your business together. You still have to lay all that groundwork yourself. So I think there's two, you know, kind of two formats where shiny object syndrome, I think, comes up for a lot of nurses that for myself, as well as like when we have talked, and then other clients that I've worked with, where it's either that you want to get down the road faster. And so you're pursuing that, like what we've talked about. And it's also, a lot of people use it just simply as a method of distraction, right? It's just like this big distraction from doing the work that they actually don't want to do. Like you said, the unglamorous part, that they really don't want to do, you know, the legwork of researching their audience, or, you know, doing those interviews, or really doing the Innergame work that they need to do themselves. And so they think they can just go pick brand colors and, you know, work on the website. And they haven't, you know, it's just really, it's a big method of distraction. And then their inner critic really kicks on because they're still not making the progress that they want. Have you seen that? Oh, we lost Catie. Let me try again. There, she's back.
Yeah, sorry, I might be in and out, so you might have to run this topic on your own, but and you're more than capable of doing that. So, but I heard a lot of what you just said, and it's true.
It's a big way to use. It's just a distraction tool. You know, it's kind of like, you know, that you don't want to do the stuff that you really don't want to do. Like for me, sales funnel was not fun. Like I did not want to learn about that. I didn't want to learn about how to set up an email service provider. Like those pieces are not fun to me at all. I would much rather, you know, work on content and just keep churning out content. But if I wasn't making an offer, what's all the content, you know, going to do? It's not moving the needle. It's not moving you forward faster.
Right. And that's, I think you have to keep the focus on what is it that you're really offering, and just keep offering it to people in different ways. And the technique of how you do that, you know, it's going to change over time, whether it's Facebook ads or Snapchat ads or Instagram ads. Like all the techniques change, but the strategy remains the same. To stay focused on is kind of that unglamorous strategy of, you know, making an offer to an audience. Is something that they want? Is it something that they want? And you know, how do you know if it's something that they want? You have to ask them, and if you never ask them, you'll never find out.
Yeah. And there is a point where you just have to actually put it out there and do test and, you know, kind of trial in the first iteration and second iteration. Pam hopped on and made a comment. She's like, it does feel like action when you are even caught up in this shiny object syndrome where you're chasing the next thing, or you're, you know, like you said, I will need to learn this piece. So you buy a course to how to learn this piece. But if you're not actually implementing and moving the needle in your business, applying it, and your business being at the point where you can integrate it, you're still not going to move yourself down the road, even though it feels like you're taking action because you're learning, something new that you need for your business, it may not be that you need it right now. And that's the piece that's going to, keep moving you further down the road.
Right. And I'll say I spent 20 years in graduate school trying to move my needles and had no idea where it was. So it was a procrastination tool. If I was always in school, then I never really had to do something.
Yes. And I think that's, certainly we see that, right? With nurses, they're like, well, I'm not ready yet. We're like, you need to where's your offer? What are you going to, put your offer out there? And it's like, well, I'm not ready yet. I still need to learn this piece. And so I just enrolled in this course, or I just got, I am currently working on this. And once I get that figured out, then I can do the offer. But that kind of then just keeps getting further pushed out.
Right. And we saw that in your course too, that just wrapped up, and, we're getting ready to do Pitch Fest. But I mean, there were some amazing, incredible nurses in there that were way over educated for, their ideas even, and they still felt like inadequate, like they weren't ready. And, they didn't want to do Pitch Fest and they didn't want to do the offer because, I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on why they didn't want to do it? Like, why wouldn't you want to present your offer?
Yeah. I think it's Innergame. It really is. I mean, that's what it always that's why I'm so interested in doing so much work, working with nurses with Innergame, because I found that in my own journey, but I just keep seeing it over and over with every nurse that I work with, is it comes down to Innergame, because they either their inner critic has kicked in, they have imposter syndrome. And, I've mentioned this, I think I've quoted this before, of, like the most, the people who have it, or I can't even figure out how I say that. Like the people who have imposter syndrome should not, right? It's like the people who are most qualified and most educated and have the most experience, they're the ones who tend to have, inferiority complexes. It's like all the wrong people have inferiority complexes. It's like, why wouldn't you, I've been in oncology for 22 years now. So it's like, of course I can put pretty much any offer out there with cancer education, and I am fully qualified to do so. Right. But in the beginning, you kind of just question, like, well, is it, am I teaching patients? Am I teaching nurses? Is this going to be enough? Is this what they want to know? So I think we all kind of go through those cycles, but that's usually what, stops the nurses that I've worked with putting an offer out, or going to, putting themselves out there, like for something like Pitch Fest, which is going to be amazing, by the way. Such a great opportunity. I hated to see anybody turn that down. But I think it's because of this, Innergame, like, fear of failure, putting themselves out there, and the inner critic kicks in, and you start to rationalize, well, I really don't have the time. I want to work on this more. So I'm going to have to delay. I won't be able to participate because I don't have this quite honed in the way I want to.
Right. And the funny thing is that, he'd asked them for a 2-minute pitch. And I know you got a couple of emails where, somebody spent clearly more than 2 minutes explaining to you why they didn't have 2 minutes to do the pitch. And it is like the inner game where it's just you're nervous, you're scared, you don't want to be rejected. But the only way to find out if your idea is going to work and it's going to succeed is to put it out there to the world. But I think there's a bigger meaning behind when you put an offer out. You wrap up kind of your personal worth in your offer, and if it gets rejected or ignored, there's a lot that goes in that.
Yeah. So and we talked about that in the group a little bit of, as for those who are, doing Pitch Fest or getting ready to launch their program, their course that they've built over the last, several weeks. It's like, well, what does, let's talk about what success actually means to you. So are you going to define success by the number of people who enroll? Or, what does it actually mean to you? Because I've seen people who had the exact same number of people enroll in their course, and one was ecstatic. They thought they knocked it out of the park. They were just over the moon with their first, course offering when it launched. And somebody else who had the same number was devastated. Like they were completely devastated because it didn't in their mind meet their expectation. So, I said, it can't be the result. When we start to tie our success to this number, of how many bought your course the first time out, or how many people show up for your coaching program, or who do you get 100 signups on your webinar, but only half of them show up. That's actually an incredible conversion rate, and people don't know that. So it's all about these expectations in your mind, and when we wrap our self-worth and what that means to us, and that's all inner game work.
Yeah, and I mean, I had that with my first offer because I had spent a year putting this offer together and finally got the courage to do the webinar. And I was so kind of like that where everybody's like, oh, I made $1 million on my launch. And I launched my product, which was $597, and I got 4 people to sign up for it. And I was one of those people that was devastated. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a loser. Like, this is never going to work. My stuff sucks. I suck. I went through this whole and I shut down. I stopped doing webinars for 10 months after that. Like, I was really devastated by the whole thing. So it pushed my whole trajectory of what I've been able to do has taken me years because of this.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because if I had talked to any of the nurses in my course now, and I said, if we were going to price your course at $597 and you got 4 your first time out, would you be happy with that? And I think the majority of them would be like, yes, please, like, sign me up now. How do I get that? How do I guarantee, $2,500 essentially, with this first, time out? And that's really just the testing the water. That's like your beta group or your pilot, product test, whatever it is, whether it's a course or an actual product or a service. Like, you've got to get it out there in the world so that you get the feedback and then you can continue to improve it.
Right. And it was funny because it was a coach that, when I met with him in October, I was working with Kevin Rogers, who's like an A-lister copywriter, but he's amazing. And, he asked me about the webinar, and he's like, okay, so the one thing that's made you money is the one thing that you no longer are doing. And I was like, well, when you put it that way, it sounds stupid.
That does sound stupid, right? It's like, oh, I didn't see it that way, right? And so sometimes it does take someone else. That's someone else to point it out to you, and you're like, oh, that's true. It's hard to deny, right?
Right. So I started webinars again, and that's been the game changer, honestly. And I've been doing it for our students as well. And Pam just launched her webinar, and that was very successful. So I'm very excited for students. And then Pitch Fest. I mean, we should talk a little bit about Pitch Fest too, and how we prep the nurses for it and what's coming up.
Yeah. So coming up next week, we are thrilled. We just wrapped up a 5-figure course creator for nurses. So, everyone has, seen there's tons and tons of online courses of how to build your own online courses. And a lot of them are free and vague. And then you stay stuck because you still don't know exactly the process of what to do and how to put it together. And so that's what we went out with Nursepreneurs. We wanted to create something that was really tailored to nurses, because what I think our students found very early on is it's not just about putting a course together. So there's a lot of inner game involved in personal development. But we also wanted to make sure that nurses know that right now you have, an incredible amount of skills, knowledge, and experience that you could actually be serving a ton more people. You could be making a much bigger impact by just packaging some of that, expertise into a course and putting it out there for those who are looking for solutions. And so that was kind of the premise of our 5-figure course creator. And so what we've done over the last several weeks is take this, amazing group of diverse nurses who are all in different specialties and working on different things. And it's really been great to see it come from idea, all the way through the planning process and to fruition, which is going to be next week when several of them are going to present at Pitch Fest.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. And their pages have been coming out really nice, and we'll start letting everybody know about that. But it's one of those things that we wanted to push them to make an offer, because we know they could sit on it for the next 2 years and never make an offer. So, we showed that in 6 weeks, we can, oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Yes.
Okay, so I know in the next 6 weeks that we can get them to do a pitch, which was really exciting.
We wanted to put them, you know, like you said, we can teach all, you can have the most amazing course and learn how to do it. And that's the content part, right? But if you don't put it into context, if you don't have this like goal, this finish line, this deadline, a lot of us have felt this experience before where you work better with a deadline. If you don't have this thing that is at the, that you know is at the end, you're less likely to do the work, all the steps each week leading up to that. You know, you got to have a finished product by this date. And so that's what Pitch Fest was. It's an incredible opportunity for all the nurses who are in the course, but it's also an incentive for them to keep going, you know, on their, you know, their weekly journey to help build that course out. Can you hear me, Catie? We're getting a lot of feedback from your, I think, sound in your salon.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. But that's, you know, that's the big key is to either, if you're not doing this, we've lost her again. If you're not doing, you know, whatever, if you're in a course or you are, you know, have a project, whether you're building a course or consulting, you know, consulting package, what's so key is that if you're not in a place that's going to give you that deadline, that you have to set that deadline yourself. Otherwise, yes, her hair looks great. You know, otherwise you're going to be less motivated to make yourself actually do the work all along the process so that you do the things that move the needle and get to a place where you can make an offer in a short period of time. I think she's freezing up again.
No, I wasn't frozen. There was just some chatter. I am in a salon. Yeah, no, absolutely. Because like I said, it took me a year with nobody pushing me, and you know, it's just kind of like I'm doing my own courses. I'm going to take my time. But you know, if I were to move anything, here I was spending money on courses, trying to you know, move the needle forward, and all I had to do was
make an offer.
Which is what I stalled on the most. Yeah.
Right. So, and I think we've gotten a lot of feedback. You know, Pam was talking about, she said that the course was a game changer for her as well. And I think a lot of people have, you know, commented in the group that like, wow, this is so much more than actually building a course. Because if you haven't done a lot of that, if you're just getting started, whether it's with a business or, you know, you wanted to create some consulting services or coaching services, or you do want to put your, you know, package your nursing skills and expertise into a course, it's more than that. You're going to come up with these Innergame roadblocks. And so you do have to work through those in order to be able to bring whatever it is to fruition and get it out in the world. So I think, you know, that's been the really fun part for me is to not only see the product that's being built from scratch to fruition, and we'll see that at Pitch Fest, but really to see the big shifts in mindset and self-confidence and self-awareness in all the students that we've had in the course with us.
Right. And it didn't cost them anything. You know, once they joined the course, there was nothing to buy. There was no shiny objects to buy. It was just come in, work on you and your offer, and let's present it. And that's what we're doing. Head
down. We're focused on one thing, and we're going to get you the steps each week on how to get there. And then we'll tackle those roadblocks, those Innergame. You know, we did that throughout, you know, the things that were coming up. And, you know, and sometimes it's in the beginning, sometimes it's halfway through. It definitely pops up and rears its ugly head as you get closer to making your offer. You start to really question those things. So, you know, we talk about how do we quiet the inner critic? You know, let's talk about imposter syndrome. You know, let's go through some exercises to really shut that down and dismiss it so that you come into your, you know, making your offer in a really confident way.
Right. And I remember like just having conversations with you where we're talking about some of the students and you're like, you know, like Kanisha, for instance, you're like, oh my God, she's so amazing. And she has this expertise. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to do what she's doing. Like, you know, and it was just like, the two of us talking about how great she is, and she
Yeah.
is going to be at Pitch Fest, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
But all of them went through some of the mind, like they couldn't see what we could see. We're like, oh, that's
Right.
a no-brainer. That's
Yeah.
obvious. Like your idea is kick-ass, and it's it wasn't so obvious to them.
Yeah. And I think, some of that is because we're really humble, right? And we don't think you yourself get trapped in the curse of knowledge. Maybe you've been in a field, for 10 years or 15 years, and it's so automatic to you. It just feels like, well, this is everybody probably knows this. You don't feel like you're specialized or, that you have, this expert knowledge to share. But the reality is, like, nobody, 10 or 15 years in a specific specialty or even nursing across the board, like, you have so much to offer. And until sometimes somebody points that out and be like, what do you mean? Like, we talk about this in Course Idea Generator, like people, listing what they're good at and what people are coming to them for. And some people will come back with like 2 lines, like, this is it. And other people like fill 2 pages and they're like, oh my gosh, I never really thought of myself in that way until you made me go through this exercise. And now I realize there are tons of things that I could be, teaching about or creating a course about and coaching people on.
Right. And I think that's the part that people don't get when you take, like, because I've taken so many courses, I've just spent a ridiculous amount of money taking courses, but you don't get that feedback. You get the information, but it's not more information that we all need. It's feedback and it's validation and permission and those types of things that will move you forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what builds your, that really builds your confidence too. When someone from the outside says, hello, that's a huge gap. Like, what do you mean? You can fill that? Like, you know how to fill that? You know how to solve that problem? We've had some nurses who, were in, and they were like, well, I've been teaching this for like, 3 decades, but I usually do it for free. And I'm like, well, how about we start charging for it? Like, okay, if people have been asking you to teach something for, the last 5 years, the last 10 years, the last 15 years, there's a reason why they're coming to you to teach it. And that also tells you that there's a market for it. So, let's put that into, a package for you so that you can keep doing what you love on your own terms in a flexible way, and get value and be valued while you're doing it and stay in nursing.
Absolutely. And again, it comes down to, it doesn't cost you anything. You don't need the shiny objects. Someday maybe a funnel will be the right thing for you, but if you're just getting started and you're not even sure what you're going to do, the website, the funnel, the sales script, the Facebook ads, all that stuff it's shiny, but it's not going to move the needle. It's not going to help you. It's just going to cost you money. And my 10 steps to start a business YouTube channel that I put together those 10 steps. And in the last step, I actually list out exactly what I spent a ridiculous amount of money on that did absolutely nothing for me. So those were my shiny objects. That was basically, it's like I just took some money and I may as well have burnt it because
right.
That's what I did with it.
Yeah, because you weren't ready for it at the time. And maybe you might never actually need to spend that money down the road even, but you certainly don't need to spend it, getting out of the gate, unless you're better off to spend it on how do I really get these first, those 10 steps. What is it going to be? If I can't get clear on that, then let me get with a mentor or a partner to help me, get that clarity. But it's not necessarily the sales funnel, the $7,000 website design and the $3,000 copywriting and all of those things. Those are all things that you can do, without in the beginning stages for sure.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Catie, I think we're coming up about on the half hour here. While I was, hoping to see the final, like, ta-da, reveal.
I'll post a picture.
Great. Let's do it. I want to see it. Everyone's anxious. Any final thoughts about shiny object syndrome?
I will say it's very compelling. It's like trying to avoid a chocolate chip cookie for me. It's you want to eat it and you want to have it. And sometimes you're going to give in and get it, and that's fine. But always come back to the basics. And when you're looking at your business and saying, why am I not making any money? Ask yourself, what have I offered to somebody today?
Yes.
And that will probably be your answer. That's
great.
why you're not making any money.
Yeah, exactly. For me, I think it's just, again, 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs, experience this at some point in their, in their business. So again, like you said, recognize that at some point you probably are going to get sidetracked, maybe have a little bit of FOMO going on when you're watching, all these gurus, and you really want to, what package they're using or what they're doing. But remember to keep focused on what is going to actually move your business, move the needle in your business. And so breaking things down when you have that big vision that feels daunting, that's really, like when shiny object syndrome can kick in, because you're overwhelmed and you're stressed. And if you just have this big vision, you kind of don't know what to do next. And that's when things like that can really catch your eye and get you distracted and get you off target. So really focus on those, breaking down your big vision into small goals to keep yourself progressing forward, and keep your overwhelm kind of to a minimum. And I think that's where we will wrap up today. So we will see you next week at Tuesday on 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next Innergame. Thanks, Catie.
Bye.